You are listening to Everything B9 on the Everything BCFC network.
Hello, Blue Noses. My name is James Kelly, and welcome to the Everything B9 Podcast. This is part of the Everything BCFC network. This podcast is for the fans, by the fans, where we dive deep into all things Birmingham City Football Club. Whether it's matchday bars, tactical breakdowns, or exclusive interviews, we have got you covered. Okay, without further ado, let's introduce you to our two participants on the pod. So let's introduce first. It has been a while since we both have been on a pod together. He's back here for Everything B9, and we're going to absolutely smash it. Please welcome everybody, Tom Oxland. Tom, welcome to the pod.
Great to be here, guys. Looking forward to the future, see what we can build and see what Blues can build on the pitch, and hopefully it's going to be a good season.
I echo that for sure, Tom. And of course, it wouldn't be a special first episode without a special guest. I call him the encyclopedia of the EFL. But maybe I'm just sugarcoating him a little bit more. I'll just keep you waiting to see who you can guess. And then we'll reveal. It's Gab Sutton. Gab, welcome to the pod.
Hi, James. Great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So without further ado, let's get smashing it. Let's crack on with today's pod. Obviously, we're going to first start off with the ownership. I think we all three can agree on how much of a change it has been at St Andrews, not just obviously at the stadium, but also now with Epic, this brand new performance centre in Henley and Arden. Tom, Knighthead, I mean, have they managed all expectations? And really, is there anything more that they could do to really put the pressure up on the rest of the other clubs in the League One?
It's a weird one, really, mate, to be honest, because I still pinch myself sometimes and think, is it real? You know, is this really happening? You know, is this level of investment really happening to Birmingham City Football Club? Because in a weird way, I feel like I knew we deserved a better time, but I didn't think we deserved this good. We've gone for real polar opposite ends of the scale, despite the relegation, which is quite laughable if you try to read it out to somebody on paper. But overall, really positive. The expectations are so high this season. And you know what? Even if things don't quite work out on the pitch, I wouldn't be rushing to point fingers at the owners because they've invested in the right areas. And I don't think anybody sat on this podcast right now could think that we haven't invested correctly, because so far it's all been so positive. So, you know, really excited for this season. Even if it doesn't quite go well, I certainly wouldn't point fingers at the owners, even if the managerial appointment doesn't work out. But in all honesty, I'm really excited to see what Chris Davies can do.
And again, continuing on it, Gab, with Knighthead, surely it's just a complete difference to BSHSL when we have their ownership. And the transition, it's not just remarkable, it's unthinkable as a Blues fan. We've had 10 years of, some will say torture, others will say it's been a rocky road. But what do you make of Knighthead since they've first been introduced?
Do you know what? I don't know if I have exactly the same thought process on it as Tom, because I completely agree, by the way. The potential of the club under this ownership regime is absolutely off the scale. The investment's been brilliant. The recruitment for a League One club has been just unheard of, with when you think of some of the players that we brought in across Europe and their profiles. So I absolutely get the level of excitement, and I do think as a club we're going to be heading in the right direction in the long term. And I wouldn't say I necessarily love Knighthead Capital from a sort of a personal point of view, not from a pragmatic, are they going to be the right people for the club and in terms of delivering success? I think they are. I do often feel like they're people who are more focused on the marketing side of things than they are about building real relationships, because I think when they have made mistakes like sacking John Eustace and bringing in Wayne Rooney, I think it's been difficult for them to really open up and apologise for them. So when Tony Mowbray did his first press conference, he did it on his own as opposed to being with somebody else from the club, and it's almost like they're trying to kind of sweep previous mistakes under the rug, which is a trait that I don't necessarily love. So there's part of me that it's not like I've committed to them on an emotional level, but on a logical level, I definitely think that they're the people to bring success to the football club, and that's what we're all here for, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. It's interesting you say that actually, because I think a lot of Blue Noses will be straight in and go, "Oh my God, they're the best thing since sliced bread," because we haven't had any enjoyment at the club, as I said, for years, and the investment is just off the scale, like you've said. But you're right, because the footballing side, on paper, forgetting the transfer window that we're just having at the moment in the summer, it hasn't all been bells and whistles, really, has it? There has been a rocky side to that. Tom, what do you make of the footballing decisions? I mean, the managers, we've constantly had managers every year. I know there was a Sky Sports reporter who, Katie Shanahan, who said that she was at St Andrews every year because we had a press conference for a brand new manager. That almost didn't really change, did it, since Knighthead came in? We still, like Gab has said, we've had the chopping and changing still.
I think, there's a few opinions I could give on this. If I'm leaning towards obviously the managerial merry-go-round, obviously Wayne Rooney was the obvious mistake. The people they brought in were great choices. And I think if things have played out differently, totally no fault of his own, and it's a real shame what actually happened with Tony Mowbray, I don't think we'd be sat here talking about a League One season coming up, in all honesty, because I do believe we were better than some of the teams that stayed up. But at
Agreed.
the end of the day, it's a 46 game season, and we just weren't at the races for 3/4 of it. So, despite that, I think Rowett was unlucky not to keep us up either. But I'm still positive going into this season because I think this time they've gone through a very thorough process where they've admitted themselves they've looked at over 100 different candidates, interviewed, I think they said nearly 20, which overall is really great due diligence. And the fact that they've come out with somebody who wasn't the first name on anybody's bingo card, let's be honest, excites me even more when you read about him and you do that sort of deep dive. So, no, very excited. But when it comes to maybe a little bit of criticism towards Knighthead, particularly for me, Gary Cook, I was very, very frustrated when we sacked John Eustace to bring in somebody's agent's mate. But when I've said that a few times publicly among some Blues fans, I get shot down very, very quickly if I try and criticise Gary Cook. And for me, jury's still out on him. But obviously, he's a Blues fan, so I know his interests will be in the right place despite the one mistake. And people make mistakes. So that's my view.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you kind of put the nail on the head there. I think people that are very similar to the disagreement view of yourself with Rooney, is that because they respected Rooney so high as a player? So when it went into management, they kind of had the same kind of thing. They saw what he did at Derby. I'm just throwing that caveat at just from the other side of the fence. In terms of at Derby, he had a lot of challenges in terms of what he did, and he did somewhat mediocre, okay, with that Derby team. So do you reckon, even still looking back, there's some Blues fans that will just say, "Nah, we should have kept on Rooney, should have gave him a transfer window"?
No.
No?
If you're leaning on towards the point of, looking to build something based on what Wayne Rooney could bring, if you look at it from an experience aspect, he'd only ever managed a club that got relegated, granted with a large points deduction. There was a great never say die attitude and a real fight for the whole back end of Derby season that year. But were we in a relegation battle at the time where you needed a never say die attitude? No. Had we ever heard of this Wayne Rooney beautiful style football that he was going to bring in at Derby? No, it was never a topic. So to bring in somebody with no experience of actually conveying his own ideas and just hope that it works because we were already in a fairly good position where we didn't think we'd go down, for me, that's very negligent. And it ended up turning out that way. So that's all on Gary Cook for me and some of the people at Knighthead that obviously supported his decision. But it's done now. It's done now. And we move on. And hopefully they've gone for a very opposite end of the scale where it doesn't meet that marketing height that Wayne Rooney did with somebody, let's be honest, completely unknown. But every time I listen to him speak, he excites me, and not had that for a while. So that's my view on things personally, and hopefully they've got it right this time, which I've got a good feeling they have.
I do apologise to keep bringing it up, but just one final point more for Gab. Gab, you're a very respectable figure in the industry. You've interviewed several managers. Why did Rooney not work in terms of that tactical side of it? Why did it not work? Was it the players just not getting the message? They're not getting the tactics? Was his leadership skills not quite gelling, or was it a whole scurry of events?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think, firstly, when there's somebody like Chris Davies, who Tom touched on there, who's built their reputation entirely on their ability as a coach, I think it's more exciting because it's more there's more confidence that they can translate those skills into number one. Whereas when it's been displayed as a player, there's a bit more uncertainty there. And I also think in Wayne Rooney's position, not that I particularly want to sort of dwell on it in a way, because I'm really excited about this season. But I think in his point of view, there was a bit of a Brand Rooney when he was at Derby. He was trying to play, in fact, against us, trying to play out from the back with Curtis Davies and Phil Jagielka because he wanted to look good to those bigger clubs. And I think there's probably a bit of that at Birmingham where he didn't necessarily adapt to what was in front of him. And I think that's possibly a flaw in the Championship. So yeah, I think that's why it didn't work out. But listen, I think they've made the right decision in Chris Davies. Hopefully that bears out. And they've also backed him with a really exciting squad, which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah, I can see you both thinking, why are we talking about Rooney in the past? Come on, we've got a massive season coming up. Let's
Where's
talk
the
about the
positivity,
future.
man?
Absolutely. All right, let's bring the positivity. Let's talk Chris Davies then, because he was in an absolute short list of managers. Just going for a few names just off the bat. Alex Neil was one that was in there. Obviously, Gary Rowett to go back in to take it as a permanent position. Liam Rossini was possibly a dream one, maybe for Blues fans. There was obviously talks of Darren Ferguson, Ian Everett potentially from Bolton. You have Skabala, Mike Williamson. There was tons and tons of shortlists. Whether they all made the interview cut and whether they made all the rounds is all for Knighthead to know. We don't care really as Blues fans. As long as you get the right appointment, that's what matters. So again, go back to Gab, Chris Davies. But for Blues fans that will watch this and go, he hasn't really got any managerial experience in League One. He hasn't really got any experience per se as a solo manager. Plenty as assistant manager, working under some phenomenal managers, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Why Chris Davies, and why is this the perfect club for him?
I mean, perfect club. We'll see, won't we? But I think I think he's got a really exciting coaching background, having worked under Brendan Rodgers at Swansea, at Liverpool, at Reading, and at Leicester, and I think Celtic as well. So I think he's got a really good background as a coach, and I think that having built up that experience, now 39. He's been in the coaching game for a long, long time now, having started back in 2010, age 25. So this is something, he's a very experienced coach, even though he's in his 30s. So I think now's the right time for him to become a number one. And hopefully he'll have the skills. I think his approach should translate quite nicely to having the best squad in the league and expecting to impose your quality on the opposition. And that's how I'd expect it to play out.
Brilliant. That's what I suppose when you look at that analysis and you look at what he's done as history, why not? Why not give him an opportunity? It's the perfect time. Maybe if we were in the Championship, it's not an appointment we probably would have gone for. Maybe we'd have gone for a more experienced manager.
Like an Alex Neil or a Paul Heckingbottom, possibly.
Who knows? Who knows what it could be? But League One's a perfect time. Like, we've given him a budget. We've given him a squad, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. Why not? Why not really emphasize on it? Tom, as a Blues fan then, does it bring excitement? You've seen some preseason games. Obviously, I think we were all thinking, oh God, 5-0 against Paderborn. What's going on? But you give him time, and over the preseason, you're seeing style of play and lock. Surely it just brings excitement and optimism.
100%. I didn't even care about that Paderborn game, in all honesty, because if you look at the two different lineups he played in each half of that game, polar opposites to the lineups you've seen in all the other friendlies. That Paderborn game was purely just a run out for players to go and get fitness because the lineups were that different, and you couldn't really see much structure. And although Chris Davies said, yes, we want to see some of the ideas being pushed across, I think that was more just a fitness game. So no concerns. And then obviously when you see him build more of a lineup in those other friendlies, you think, right, okay, this is more like the team that he wants to lean towards. And boy, has it been exciting so far, particularly the Rangers game. Obviously, that was some of the best football I have ever seen a Birmingham City side play in my time supporting Blues ever. And granted, polar opposite when you go to Warsaw away, little bit more, rough and tumble and grinding out. But we're going to have that this season because anyone you ever really speak to about League One, it's not quite the level of the Championship, nor would you expect it to be, but it is a lot tougher, a lot rougher, and you got to get down and dirty to win games. And that's essentially what Derby have done, this year. All the fans of, back end of last year, obviously, all the fans have hated the way Paul Warner's played football, but they finished second. So as much as I love seeing exciting football and getting excited about the players we're bringing in, me personally, so long as we win a game, I don't care how we do it, just that we do it. And I think we've shown both sides of that to our game in pre-season, which for me, big plus point, real big plus point. And hopefully Chris Davies can implement those styles, both of them, into the new season, which is all the excitement you need amongst all the dollar being thrown around.
Yeah, well, you talk about dollar being thrown around, 8 signings currently. Who knows how many we could get? I mean, the rumours still flowing in as we're on the podcast now of who potentially could be linked. We're obviously not going to say anything in case it happens or in case it actually just fruition to happen or in case it's a dead link. But at the moment, in terms of the current squad, in terms of the 8 signings between... We'll go Gab first and then Tom just shortly after. Out of the 8 that have come in, it's for the podcast that they don't know, to go over the 8 signings, obviously 2 keepers that have come in, Bailey Peacock-Farrell from Burnley, and we've also had Ryan Alsop from Hull City as well. So that's two keepers. Ideally, some will say it's 2 number ones, really. So that's a good spoil for choice for Chris Davies to really go off. Mark Leonard, one of my most exciting signings, I'd have to say, in centre midfield, coming in from Brighton. Alfie May, you can't really get anything past Alfie May, top goal scorer. I'm sure Gab will have a lot to say on Alfie and what he's done history in for Charlton and how much of a really big signing he has been for them. Alex Cochran, another really exciting left back coming in from Hearts in the Scottish Premier League. And then slightly different recruitment, which I'd have to say that Blues probably haven't done previously. They may have done the foreign market, but properly dipping into the foreign market. Again, at 6'2", Icelandic beast in William Thor Williamson from Go Ahead Eagles. Emil Hansen as well, come from Heracles in the Eredivisie. Christopher Clara at the back in the Bundesliga. So that's just 8. God knows how many more we're going to get in the window. But going from this 8, Gab, who's the one that really thinks, right, he's the one that's really going to make an impact?
Mark Leonard. I was absolutely amazed that we were able to get him, first of all, permanently at all, because I would have expected Brighton to have wanted him permanently. And secondly, only 500 grand I heard as mooted, which I just find absolutely extraordinary. I would have expected to have had to pay about 8 times that. So yeah, I'm stunned that we've been able to get Mark Leonard. I've seen this lad play for Northampton Town. He is the League One Perlo. I've seen him hit a diagonal on the half volley. That's how good he is in terms of as a technician, the confidence that he has to impose himself on games. And I think in a better team with better players around him, that quality is really going to shine through. So it wouldn't surprise me if Mark Leonard gets Player of the Year in League One this season. I think he's a phenomenal footballer.
That's a major scoop there from Gab. Player of the season, hopefully, is Mark Leonard. Interesting to see how it plays out. Interesting to say about Leonard, actually. It does bring that excitement. He only featured an older shot for that game. But even I've just seen clips and stuff on Twitter of Blues fans kind of talking about him and commenting about him. He did one diagonal similar, actually, from the halfway line to one of our younger forwards.
It's so strange. It was like the ball was bouncing and he hit a ball and it went straight to the opposite flank, literally pinpoint as well. So it's incredible the sort of vision that he's got. And I don't know if either of you gents can remember the last time we had a footballer who could hit who was capable of that sort of thing. I suspect you'd have to go back quite a while. So Mark Leonard.
Yeah, no, but it's
probably
back to
Mark
go
back to the last Scottish central mid we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Tescher, was it? I don't know.
No, he was German.
But he was German.
I was thinking more Barry Ferguson.
Barry Ferguson. Yeah.
I was going to say, otherwise you pass it back to Mark
I'm
Roberts.
getting my
All right,
I'm Tom, I'm getting my nationalities mixed up a bit here.
I did love Robert Tesh though. I will never forget when he should have
Oh,
scored on the half volley and it hit the bar.
Nottingham Forest, wasn't it?
That was it, yes. And it was honestly one of the best strikes I've ever seen. Deserved to be a
Oh,
goal.
without injuries, he could have been amazing.
100%.
Tom, on the 8, you can't pick Leonard because Gab's beaten you to it. But of the 8, who else really excites you?
I'll be honest, you've got some really easy selections here. You know, Alfie May for goals alone and what he's already achieved in the league is exciting in itself. Thor is just exciting because he's big and his name is really cool.
Sounds like a Greek god, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He looks like a Greek god. The man is just has been made in a lab.
Could we get St Andrews, the powers that be, to please make a goal sound for when he scores?
Or just somebody throw him a hammer out the crowd and let him catch it like it's coming to him. But yeah, no, big fan of him. Also, big fan of Emil Hansen.
Yeah.
I've really liked the look of so far. Very tidy. Maybe not quite as exciting as Sariki Dembele on the ball, but his control and his general vision of play is incredible, particularly in that Rangers game, because every single pass he played, just play it first time, and he knew where his teammate was going to be, and it was all into the right areas. And the one thing for me, I know it's called football, but this pass he done with his upper body, where he just flicks it on to Alfie May to run on, it was just so clean, beautiful, crisp. But despite all this, he's not the player I'm going to pick. For me, Alex Cochrane is genuinely really surprised me because going into this season, one of the most irreplaceable positions for me probably would have been left back. So I really like Lee Buchanan, really like him. Obviously, injuries hasn't helped him, but Alex Cochrane has just come in and I love it because not only is he good on the ball, but he's a grafter. And I love a grafter. I love that he's young and hungry and exciting. And, you know, sometimes moves over from the Scottish Premiership to English football either go one or two ways. And it's certainly gone in the right direction for him. And so far, just generally excited because I love his work rate. I love his work ethic and seems to be able to run those channels really well and play his part on both sides of the pitch. So for me, bit of a wild card, but Alex Cochrane personally, despite Emil Hansen being so drippy on the ball, has excited me the most.
Again, throwing another spanner in the works. Again, we don't want to talk about rumours too much because it's one of those things where if it doesn't happen, we'll look a bit silly. But there is a concrete process, and I don't know, just got a feeling. There's that feeling in my heart that it's made to happen. Do we, one word answer, think the prodigal son of last season, Jay Stansfield, should return to the club? Do you reckon it could happen?
No.
No, straight away.
I think he'll want to play in the Championship.
So you think that the League One dream, the project, would be enough to entice the player?
Well, I mean, I think he's been in and around Fulham's squad, hasn't he? And I think having proven himself in the Championship last year, it's not like he's an older player who might go for the last paycheck. I think he's someone who'll feel like he's at a stage of his career where he's got to prove himself in the Championship with a view to getting into the Premier League. Whereas if he drops down to League One, that Premier League opportunity is another year away. So for me, I don't see Jay Stansfield happening, even if we've got the money for it.
Even if we bought in the project to be like, okay, maybe look what Ipswich have done. Could Blues maybe potentially be the new Ipswich and go up into let's presume it first. League One to the Championship to the Premier League. Still maybe not.
Well, Ipswich didn't sign one of the best strikers in the Championship from the year before when they went up in 22-23, did they? So I don't think it's going to happen. We've made some great signings. I'm sure we'll bring another striker, but I don't think Jay Stansfield happens.
And again, Tom, just quickly on Stansfield, is it more of a dream? And in terms of, do we actually need him? There's a lot of Blues fans thinking, actually, we've got Alfie May. He's the goals. A second striker just coming off the bench. Do we actually need him?
It's a tough one because if you ask me honestly right now, do I think it's going to happen? I actually do think it's going to happen. I do. It's tight because I lean towards both sides, but there's a part of me that just says it will happen because there seems to be so much noise around it. And, if he's willing to come down to this level and believes that his career can progress still despite coming back down, really, because it would be a step back. But hopefully he might see it as a major step forward. But the only worry for me is, like we've said, comes in the question, do we need him? And
well, that's your only work. So do we need Stansfield is the reason you think it wouldn't happen?
yes, and that's it. And for me, I've seen it from two perspectives. I don't think we personally need him. Doesn't mean I wouldn't love him to come back, but I don't think we need him.
Okay.
Whereas on the other shoe, you look at Chris Davies, who has spoken so much about squad depth and having quality replacements in each and every single role on the pitch, and is clearly very big on versatile midfielders that could play in multiple positions. And that's clearly what's going to be a theme this season. Jay Stansfield was versatile last season. He could play on either wing or behind the striker, but obviously primarily he was best up front. I worry, would he be wasted if we are going to play with a sole striker up top if he wasn't in that role? And do I think it would be totally unfair to Alfie May if we did prioritise Stansfield and not play with two strikers? Yes. So personally, there's a part of me that doesn't want it to happen. As much as I'd love it, at the same time, I'd worry we're doing it purely to make a statement or a statement of intent and please fans by bringing back our player of the season. And that's probably a little bit negative, but don't get me wrong, I'm sure Chris Davies would find a way to make it work and it could be a positive. And you never know, we might play with two strikers. Obviously, the lineup is going to look so different come the end of the season to how it's going to look from that first game of the season. So plenty of time and games to go. But I think it's going to happen, but I don't think we need it to.
Interesting.
I mean, it depends what you define as need. I don't think we need Jay Stansfield in the sense that not signing him would massively reduce my thoughts on our prospects. But I do think, could he make an amazing difference to our team? Yes, I think he absolutely could. And I 100%. Think he would, he'd be, he could get 30, 35 goals in League One for sure. But I think, it would be harsh on Alfie May. But I think for me, the question is stepping down to League One. I think that's a huge ask for somebody that supposedly Ipswich have been interested in. I don't know that I can see it.
I don't know. I'm just that positive Blue Nose, guys. I just think we can buy the project to him. I think secretly inside he wants to. I don't know. I just think there's as Tom said, there's so much noise around the signing. I just think that I wouldn't be surprised come not necessarily first game, but second, third game going later into the window. This story does not go away and something's could do. Because let's be honest, I know it's ridiculous, completely ridiculous, the fees that are being put up in terms of what Fulham want, in terms of what Blues are likely to pay for a player of his caliber in League One. I just think they're just ruthless. They're ruthless, Knighthead, and if they want a player, they'll go get him. And I'm hoping it does happen for more than nostalgia's sake of last season. However, I do agree with Tom. It's like, here's an analogy for you. The first one of the podcast. It's like having heroes and celebrations. They're both bloody brilliant, but you don't know which one you want to go into first. So
I'd go celebrations.
I've hated them both.
Really?
Yeah, I'm more of a plain chocolate man. Just give me something really plain, and I'll put it in the freezer because I like my chocolate cold.
Wow.
So, okay, fair.
There you go. Unpopular opinion.
That one didn't work then.
I can give you another chocolate opinion if anyone's interested in this.
Okay.
Come on, side debate. Let's go.
I think chocolate is only good as chocolate. I don't think chocolate ice cream or chocolate cake is actually that good. I think the only form of chocolate that's good is actually chocolate.
I actually back that. I back that.
Okay.
Maybe Maybe if they ever made a chocolate vape, I'd entertain it. No, I totally agree. I think chocolate should just stay as chocolate and nothing beyond that. I always thought
Well,
chocolate Nesquik was a
You've got a
disappointment.
point though. It's true because, for example, I'd go for chocolate, but when I have like a cake or a cupcake or something, ice cream, it's always sort of caramel. It's never. You really got me on a point there.
yeah. Anyway, before we get into chocolate vapes, I'll hand it back to you, James.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, just me being the opposite of Stansfield. As of recording tonight, Fulham had a pre-season against Benfica. It might not absolutely be anything, but Stansfield wasn't in the squad at all. Start 11 or substitutes. Could that be something? Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see what happens when we talk at the next pod. And
We have
speaking,
Raul Jimenez up top.
yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Actually, no, tell a lie. He was supposed to sign for Blues last season.
That's a cheeky exclusive for you.
Yep.
Okay, all right, moving on. So let's move into speaking of the next, Reading. Gab, what do we make of Reading of what they want to continue on from last season? Moving on now in terms of the manager that they've got and in terms of any investment to the squad. Where do you reckon Reading could feature overall in the season, but also the preview against Blues?
Yeah, I think Reading are a team that's going to divide a lot of opinions among sort of League One neutrals, if you like, because I've actually put them seventh in my 1 to 24, but I've also spoken to someone who does a similar thing to me who says they're going to go down. So that kind of shows you where Reading are. But for me, I think they might be underestimated a little bit, partly because of excuse me, the ownership issues, which I think are going to be resolved, and hopefully the Coheed takeover with the former Wickham owners is going to come through soon. And I actually think that might give them a bit of a lift and kind of work in their favour. But really, the reason I like Reading is because I think they've got a really good coach in Ruben Sellers, who's worked in the Premier League with Southampton. They've got an exciting young squad, much of which has international recognition. And they've kind of played together for a while, so quite good for continuity. They were all together last season, and they've not really had much squad churn, which I like. Top 10 form pretty much from November onwards last season. So again, that suggests don't underestimate them, especially considering they've not really lost anyone. Yeah, so I actually think there's lots of reasons to think Reading could be good this season. So I think they're going to be dangerous opponents on the opening day. They've not been able to sign anyone, but yeah, they've got some exciting young players. Watch out for Ben Elliott in midfield, because when he was 16, he was regarded alongside Jamal Musiala, who was starring at the Euros, as one of the next big things to come out of Chelsea. Hasn't quite worked out like that. Now he's 23. But yeah, I think Ben Elliott's going to be one to watch, definitely. They've got a couple of really good centre backs as well who are really talented. So I think Reading are going to pose a threat, and I think it'd be foolish to underestimate them.
So on that basis, in terms of you reckon on the first game, do you reckon it's going to be tighter than people think? I think obviously Blues are not just Blues fans, but the optimism around the whole of the division in terms of fans from there will be thinking, right, Blues are going to win every game, which is clearly not going to be the case. It's going to be a lot harder than people think. But do you reckon then the scoreline will be a lot tighter, or do you reckon it still will be a cakewalk for Blues?
I'll go 3-1 to Blues if you're asking me for a score. I think Reading can find the net, but I think we'll probably have a little bit too much.
And again, Tom, on Reading, some Blues fans will say they're always trying to force the rivalry with Blues for some reason. What do you make on that, and also on Reading going forward? Do you reckon Gab's put them, which we'll talk very shortly, through his Bet Victor League One, his predictions, which I'm sure you can have with highlight. We'll put it all in the description as well, for people to go see. You've got them seventh, Reading, so quite high up actually, in terms of their trying to push on. What do you make of Reading, Tom, and what do you think will happen on the first game of the season?
I think Reading are Reading. Reading should be one of the bigger players in League One, realistically. And I think if it wasn't down to their ownership, they would be, and they'd be right up there in contention for the title with us if things were a bit more stable. But like Gab said, there's not really been that much change there player-wise. And I didn't know that they'd had that sort of top 10 level of form, which changes my perspective a little bit. But I definitely wouldn't have them as somebody going down. I don't have them down as somebody having a positive season, but definitely a team that can be competitive, and so they should be. Reading has always been either a really easy fixture for Blues or a real bogey, whether that's home or away, either way. And yeah, look, the Puskas days are over. Let's all put it behind us and move on. No rivalry needed. But in all honesty, I feel very similar to Gab. I think 3-1 is how I'm leaning towards. But one thing I've certainly learned from this preseason so far is that if Blues aren't clinical with the chances they create, they are so open on the break. And if Walsall can find that, then you better believe Reading can too. So it will be interesting. And if Reading have that bit of pace and creativity, we have to make sure that we're prepared for that. But I'm sure somebody as well prepped as Chris Davies seems to be, we will be ready for the challenge of Reading, and we won't underestimate them whatsoever, and nor should we. So fingers crossed. I'm going to say 3-1 Blues.
Well, very optimistic from both of you. Just a thought quickly, based on being back at St Andrews. Obviously, there's a lot of investment gone at Epic, a lot of investment gone at the stadium in terms of the new club shop, a new amphitheatre, which is going to sound pretty interesting. What are your thought process on Knighthead on the investment side? I know a lot of people probably not them on the football side, but surely on the investment side. To quote a very famous pundit, Gary Neville, who said that, not necessarily at Blues, but just generally across the board in terms of a club, if you get the foundations right, the solid foundations right, you'll be able to, one, bring in the players and be able to build something. If you get the football right straight away, but in not the best conditions or not the best what I'm thinking of here, not the best scenarios per se. Circumstances, that's the word. Circumstances. Then it's actually sometimes a blessing in disguise. So what Knighthead are doing in terms of the investment of the facilities, in terms of the marketing and that side of it, surely that's a positive maybe to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I remember standing outside the ground last season in the new fan area just outside the Cop, where you've got all the self-pour beer and the food vans everywhere even. I remember just standing there and saying to my granddad, saying, how mad's this? We wouldn't have really thought this would have been something we'd see down the Blues anytime soon a couple of years ago. But it's crazy, the change and just the whole vibe. It's really nice. It's positive and everyone's enjoying themselves. Some of the crazy food they got going on outside the ground now is awesome. Big fan of it. Really here for it, despite still being quite a plain human being, in case you couldn't tell that from my chocolate tastes. Generally just full of optimism on that side of things, and they've really looked at improving the fan experience. So excited for the new bar when that opens, the longest bar in Europe, which is a pretty cool thing to say, that belongs to Birmingham City Football Club. And yeah,
you'd hate to work there though, wouldn't you? The longest bar in Europe, you'll have queues coming.
Yeah, it's bad enough as it is. So yeah, it'd be interested to see how that goes down. But look, big fan of the beer lineup this year as well. I think they've really got that right. But do you know what? That's not even my biggest praise. The new plastic cups, yeah, big fan. Big fan. I didn't think it would be the thing I was most happy about or excited about, but who knew that some proper plastic cups would really change my matchday vibe? So there we are. It's the little things, and I think that's probably what they've done best. The little things have made it such a wholeheartedly more enjoyable experience and a bit more family friendly.
Yeah, and maybe those little things as well that you add on are the things that really make the difference. So under BSHSL or previous ownership, that maybe that wouldn't have been brought in, and maybe it's just Knighthead's idea of saying, well, we've got a similar thing in America, let's bring it over. And again, I'll go back to Gab's point of that marketing side. Maybe it's just the American head of the ownership bringing that in. I know Edgbaston down the road, they've brought that in for years, having e-cups and that type of similar thing. Gab, again, what do you think really puts to eye, not necessarily on the being their first game, I'm sure you're very much looking forward to first game. But in terms of what Knighthead have built in St Andrews, who, bearing in mind, they know they're going to build a new stadium in 5-6 years or whatever it's going to be, and it's going to be so much capacity and so much investment, but they're still investing quite a bit in St Andrews.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really encouraging. And listen, all the actions that they've done in terms of investing in the training centre or the high performance centre, as it's called now. Not so much high performance last season, but yeah, the investment in that, all the infrastructure, I think, is really encouraging. And I do think it's a really big thing for clubs who are able to financially to actually invest in the matchday experience, because I think certainly the leagues I cover, the lower levels, that can get overlooked, and sometimes that's partly because of budgetary limitations. Clubs are a little bit restricted in what they can do, but I think if you do have the money to make the matchday experience better, then that's obviously likely to reap dividends. So hopefully that's going to be the case.
For sure. Well, speaking of the running game here on Everything B9 in terms of the podcast going forward, and also as the network, Everything BCFC, we've got two other little gems of podcasts to bring to you. A different one, which is more of a vocal podcast, which is a more matchday atmosphere. We're excited to announce that we'll be launching a new series of matchday vlogs over on the EverythingBCFC YouTube channel. The vlogs will offer fans an immersive experience capturing the electric atmosphere of Blues home games and what could be so many good scorelines, hopefully, at St Andrews this season. From pre-match build-up to post-match reactions, viewers will get behind-the-scenes look at the passion and dedication of Blues supporters throughout the 24-25 season. So very much looking forward to this one. And also a second one, which I'm sure he'll lead this one on because I'm sure he's very passionate about. Dugout Debate, a brand new podcast we're going to bring to you with not just Blues fans, opposition fans, but also hopefully some senior figures in the industry that you also respect highly that we're looking forward to get on. Tom, I know you love a little scrap with an opposition fan, not in that way, but over a podcast. You've got some things definitely to say. Dugout Debate, a very exciting thing that we're bringing to the Everything BCFC network.
Look, from content I've done previously before, I think it's the best sort of content when you interact with fans of other clubs and learn, their football culture, but also what they have to say about their team. And honestly, you can have a real, real good laugh and a good time, and occasionally the odd controversial sentence or two. So personally, one of my favorite types of videos to do. Really looking forward to doing a lot more of it this season. I know my nan will be buzzing for it because she used to love it when I did it before. It should be good. Really looking forward to it. Some of the guests we can hopefully get on the podcast this season. It would be great to speak to them and also hear what they're feeling for the season. And hopefully when we do a bit of a match day prediction at the end of every one of those videos, I'm just going to predict the Blues win every single time, and it's going to feel really nice. So,
Invincible,
very
is it,
excited.
Tom? Invincible season.
Oh, 100%, 100%. It's always on the cards. Chris Davies is Invincibles. And do you know what? The scary thing is, I think if we had this current squad we've got right now and this manager, I think we'd finish mid-table in the Championship quite comfortable.
I agree with that. Do you know what? I was talking earlier at one of these events that I was at, and somebody said that they might ask one of the bookmakers for the odds on Birmingham City to have an invincible season. And I was thinking along the lines of, would it be 100-1? He was saying apparently it'd be something like 25-1, which I would find amazing. But I can't see it happening, but I was wondering what if you had to guess a percentage probability of Blues going a full season unbeaten, would you go I would say 0.5% or something like that?
I'm going to say there is a 1.2% chance of happening.
1.2%, okay.
And that 1.2% consists in a very, very yellow team called Burton Albion. And
right.
That is the banana skin, as truly so in their colour as well. The yellow kit, it just screams banana. They do it every time we've played them in a league season before. I don't know what happens when we play Burton Albion. Really annoys me because I grew up in Swadlincote, which is on the doorstep of Burton, and I've had to be used to that when we get humiliated by Burton Albion. Not nice. but the only plus point is it's 7 minutes away from my house. So nice, easy journey.
You've got a nice, horrible 7 minute, 7 minute journey back.
When I'm upset, it's a short trip home.
You
So
are okay, yeah. You can say it's a long journey home. 7 minutes.
there we are, sorted. That's the positive and negative to Burton Albion derailing Blues' promotion.
Yeah. Have we never beaten them in the league yet? Then before, because
no.
Never
in the league. Only in the FA Cup when Sam Gallagher scored and we beat him 1-0 at St Andrews. But every other time we've played him in the league, we drew once 1-1 at home when Dukey scored an 88th minute equaliser. What a day.
Under Gary Monk, that was, wasn't
it? That was it, yeah. And then, every other time we've played him, it's either been Jamie Ward, Lloyd Dyer, or just one of those absolute menaces scoring and ruining my weekend. So
did we lose to them under Harry Redknapp, or did we win? I can't remember.
We lost to them 2-1 because
we lost them under Harry Redknapp, right?
That was it. Jack Magoma put us 1-0 up, and then Lloyd Dyer scored.
Right. There we go.
There you are. I remember watching that on telly and being very sad because I did not want to go to my school that was in Burton the next day.
Oh.
Yeah, rough times.
Not good at all. But this is where the positivity comes out, Tom. It's a whole different caliber of fish now. We can be very positive. You have kindly led me on, though. If it isn't Blues and there is someone to derail, I'd like to think that first of all, Gab promoted, yes.
Obviously,
Tom, yes. Keep the faith.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, that's
100%.
fine. We got that out of the way. Absolutely going to get promoted. They'll probably piss the league and they'll probably win be the champions. But if we're coming out from a different side of the argument, and there are other teams that are going to push Blues to the wire, who are we looking at, Gab? We're going to obviously go to your League One predictor.
Yeah.
Some very interesting shouts. We're going to read them out as they are 1 to 24 for now. And then we'll kind of highlight, and if Tom wants to shout out some teams as well, if we want to highlight to see, why has Gab put them there, etc. I'm sure Gab has his reasoning behind it. So, unfortunately, relegation, Crawley, no surprise there really. Lost a lot of players, so it's going to be quite a hard recovery for Crawley. Midlands and Shrewsbury and Northampton. Mark Leonard really gonna unfortunately cost Northampton there. Then comes Cambridge, Mansfield, and Exeter. Burnley, Barnsley, and Bristol Rovers. Wrexham down quite low, which is quite interesting there. Leyton Orient, Peterborough again, one that's slightly just fallen down from the usual. Stevenage, Stockport County, looking to fire back as well. Stockport being unbelievable since National League. Rotherham, Wycombe Wanderers, Blackpool, and then we move into the proper where it all heats up with the playoff races. Reading, Lincoln, Huddersfield, Charlton, Wigan, Bolton, Blues. So Bolton to go up automatics. Who do you think win the playoffs then, Gab, out of the four you've got? Wigan, Charlton, Huddersfield, Lincoln.
It feels weird to talk about that. I'll go with Wigan, seeing as I've got them third. I like Wigan. They've got a really good goalkeeper called Sam Tickle, who's I think one of the most talented goalkeepers in England at the moment. I know, yeah. He's good with his hands. So he'll definitely be one to watch.
Tom, out of the teams that I've just written there, any one of a shock that you think that Gab's misplaced?
Not really, no. I think there are some maybe that you could say Wrexham might be higher if they spend a bit more, which I'm sure naturally they will. But I know they've had back-to-back promotions now, but I think this is a whole different kettle of fish now in League One, and it's not going to be as straightforward to just push yourself into the top 10 as it would have been in League Two, because I think the difference between League Two and National League is actually quite slim.
Yeah, but the difference between League Two and League One is much bigger, and I think. Yeah, I think Wrexham have got to be quite realistic about timescales as well. I think having won back-to-back promotions, I think another one might be a bit of a stretch. I'm actually a bit more excited about Stockport's squad. Actually, I think they've recruited some really exciting players.
Who do you reckon is going to push Blues to the line then? You obviously put Bolton and Wigan second and third. Any dark horses maybe that could really jump in?
I think Lincoln City are going to be dangerous. They have lost some key players from last season, but their form in spring was sumptuous. They went 16 games unbeaten in spring, and a lot of those were wins. It's not like they drew a lot of games in that section as well. So yeah, I think Lincoln City could be really dangerous under Michael Scabala, who we were linked with previously.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, was the assistant manager at Leeds, and then obviously became interim at Leeds as well. So, interesting for Scamani. He's a similar one to Chris Davies. Actually, hasn't really pushed himself as a first team coach. Great opportunity at Lincoln for Scamani to do that. And then obviously you've said and you've kind of touched upon Tom. Who do you think really stands out between the rest of the team? You've got to look at Bolton. Ian Everett got them so close to last year. Bolton are surely going to be up there.
I think, yeah, Bolton are definitely going to be up there. I think, Charlton will be up there. I think in a bit of a response to the last question you asked me as well, maybe Gab have been a bit harsh on. I'm not going to say he's been harsh on them, but I'm going to put Peterborough at the forefront as they are a bit of a it's going to work or it's not team right now. It's either going to be $1 million or bust. But
Sure.
That's always the way with Peterborough, because constantly they sell their better players and they bring in all these unknown names from the middle of nowhere, and you think, surely not again. But that's the lottery with Peterborough. It is the Peterborough lottery. Either they've built this masterclass of a team with these brand new players that we're not too familiar with, and they'll be in that top 6 mark, or they won't. So exciting one there. But for me personally, I really, really want Leyton Orient to do well. That's probably more down to my father's side, as my dad is from East London, massive Leyton Orient fan, whereas my granddad is from Birmingham, massive Blues fan. So yeah, that's how I ended up at this side of the scale. But yeah, Leyton Orient, I love Richie Wellens. I'm such a big fan of his, and I love what he's done at Leyton Orient. And I think some of their signings have been quite tidy. I still don't think, despite flirting with the playoffs a little bit last season, particularly towards the end, I still don't think they're going to quite be there. But I certainly think they're going to be tough opposition. As for maybe a playoff winner, I know Gab said Wigan. I'm going to say Charlton, which obviously isn't too far off the predictions you've gone for. And that's probably me, just because of the fact that the old company I used to work for, we did this wicked little 6-a-side tournament at St. George's Park, where we all had either current or former not Premier League, sorry. But some of them were Premier League managers at one time or another. Managers that have been in the game managing us in this 6-a-side tournament. And I had the privilege of having Nathan Jones, who before that tournament, I hated him. Yeah. I absolutely hated him. But until I actually stood there and was managed by him in a football game, one of the coolest experiences of my life.
That must have been amazing.
It was genuinely actually a really funny human being. And very honest too, very honest. I remember we were 3-0 down. We all had like 2 subs on each team, and Nathan Jones literally turned around to our 2 subs and said, just run on the pitch, no one will notice, because we were about 3-0 down. So he just set them on, and all of a sudden we started playing really well, and we pulled it back to 3-2.
I hope he doesn't do that against us, Tom.
Well, fingers crossed not, mate. Fingers crossed not. But we really clicked into gear after that. And maybe just a weird soft spot that I know a lot of people don't like him, and he can be very particular and irritable in post-match interviews, but as you would be if you're passionate and you've lost a game of football. And I get that.
I think he's very passionate. I think he lives and breathes it, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%. And I am all for a badge tapper. And do you know what? Considering it was a 6-a-side tournament that meant nothing to his life, he was still stood there badge tapping for the orange team. Come on now. So yeah, that's my dark horse.
For sure. I think almost you put the nail on the head there, really. It shows how competitive now League One is, that you can get a manager such as Nathan Jones, who has managed several teams.
He was in the Premier League 2 years ago.
Exactly.
That season, actually.
Well, exactly. Literally, it's crazy. So there we are.
Yeah, for sure. And also, just quickly on Charlton, you've just said they're going to have to get a lot of goals for the big void that is Alfie May. But best of luck to Charlton this season, and we'll hopefully look forward to seeing Attic fans on Dugout Debate hopefully as well. Going forward. Gab, to finish off the podcast then, we are very delighted to say that this is not just a one-shot appearance as well. Hopefully it will be one of many. What can you expect as well? What can viewers expect to see of Gab Sutton going forward on Everything B9?
Yeah, happy to come on and talk about Blues, and hopefully add to the podcast. Looks like you've got a really exciting thing going here. If you're interested in following me off podcast, I'm available to follow at Gab Sutton on Twitter and on TikTok. I know I do TikTok now. And
look at you.
I know, absolutely. Getting in with the modern world. But I'm also available on YouTube with EFL Debate, where I'm doing thrice weekly podcasts. One on the Championship, one on League One, and one on League Two, speaking to fans of various different clubs, as well as a few managerial interviews in there as well. A couple of those in the pipeline. So plenty to get stuck into at Gab Sutton on Twitter and TikTok, and EFL Debate on YouTube and Spotify.
Perfect. And as Gab virtually said there, if all our predictions work out, then hopefully when he comes on, which we're hoping for every month, you'll see Gab on the pod. We'll be talking through that League One season as the campaign really unfolds. So we'll see if Blues do actually go a bit undefeated in August and then move on and see who else as well outside.
I don't think we will go undefeated in August. I think we might lose at Leyton Orient.
Oh,
and do you know what? I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. Do you know, if we're going to lose to anybody this season, I think
we'll have a random defeat, but other than that, we might win all the others in August. That's how I think it'll go.
Yeah,
100%.
Christmas. It all heats up around Christmas. What do you reckon the fixtures around Christmas? Do you reckon they can keep up the momentum?
Who we got around Christmas?
Oh, God.
Burton Albion on Boxing Day, which is so going to ruin my Christmas.
Well, apparently it's not Boxing Day anymore. Apparently they've moved that.
Oh, don't. No.
Yeah,
come on.
I swear I saw
Boxing Day from me.
Oh, guys, you know, the worst thing is I've looked for the Blues fixtures and I've clicked on the Championship. Have it.
No.
God, that's like buying a shirt off DHK.
And then I've realised.
Oh, God. Stockport New Year's Day away. Oh, what a tasty picture that is! If Gab's saying that Stockport are going to be up there,
I think they'll be top half. They've got Louis Barry back on loan, and I think him, Isaac Oliofe, and Michael Mellon are going to be a very dangerous front three. So watch out for those three.
Where did you put Barnsley? Because Barnsley and all
17th.
Bloody. So why Barnsley? Why Barnsley so low?
I got a lot of grief from Barnsley fans. You can watch my chat with the lads at Red All Over to kind of see my grilling there. But yeah, I think they've got very strong midfield. But I think other than that, there's 4 or 5 areas of their best 11 that's in question at a really late stage of the window, and I don't think they're going to get all the answers. I'm also not convinced by Darryl Clark being the right person for what they need. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a disappointing season for them.
Interesting.
I believe short term for that was Mark Roberts' effect, but yeah,
I'm not sure.
Well, Barnsley are known for that, for being pretty aggressive and hard to defend. So then you just add Mark Robertson as a weapon to launch a ball.
I mean, it's a given that they're going to come to St Andrews and tonk us now, like they always do. So,
yeah, exactly. Who knows? Gab, Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you on the pod. Thank you very much for episode 1. It's been very enjoyable talking Blues, and I'm sure it's for once it's going to be a very passionate season and enthusiastic as well as a Blues fan to really look forward to. And let's see what happens. We'll meet again, obviously for next round again, Tom. Let's see what the score is. Let's see if it's 3-1. And we'll see what happens. We'll debate Reading. We'll debate the game. We'll debate going forward as well. Talk about other things as well. Coming on the BCFC network. Obviously, Dugout Debate, as Tom has mentioned, is going to be very exciting. If you also are a fan, Blues fan, opposition fan, and you want a bit as well to come on and talk if it's passionate about your club or if it's just passionate about Blues, feel free to let us know. Drop us a direct message on any of our social media platforms, and we'll love to hopefully try to get you on in the future as well. As well, we send Will and Alex to St Andrews. I nearly said Trillion Trophy Stadium then. I don't know why I don't know why I did, but I nearly did. But St Andrews,
it actually will be a Trillion Trophy Stadium by the time Knighthead are done. Come on now.
I like that. So yeah, make sure to tune in for that. Will and Alex live from the stands versus Reading, first game up. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next on the podcast. That has been Everything B9 for the fans, by the fans, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.